Hi everyone, I'm back from the Simracing Expo, and I just had to take a day off to really take in everything that happened from possibly the biggest sim racing expo ever. And one of the biggest surprises was the announcement of Assetto Corsa Rally that is coming out soon. And at the expo, we were treated to an alpha version of Assetto Corsa Rally. Now this is a separate team from Kunos that has worked on this game, so don't worry. The slowdown of development of AC Evo isn't because of this. That slowdown, I'm not going to get into in this video. And I was really lucky to try AC Rally on MSim's newest simulator, the Gara, using the Cubic QS210 and their traction platform. Anyways, let's talk about AC Rally. Now disclaimer, I am not a rally guy. I really prefer locking up my brakes in a super formula car than drifting on the dirt. But I have played most rally games going back to RBR and Colin McRae Rally. So let's get into it. I was really surprised by it. There are some good things and some bad things, but I think the bad can mostly be ironed out by the time the launch comes around. Now this title reminds me a lot of RBR, and that's a really good thing. It's not as hard as RBR to drive, and it is much more enjoyable to a rally novice like me. Now I got to try out the Hyundai i20 and the Lancia Delta, and both cars had their own characteristics in the way they drove, but they were very intuitive and fun to drive. And I tried both cars on the tarmac and gravel stages, in the wet and on the dry. On the gravel and the dry, the cars were really tricky to slow down, but they were very slippery in the wet, especially as you're approaching hairpins, which makes sense because less friction means more slip. The cars were much more planted on the tarmac, and you can really have some fun drifting them around the corners. Now while I was waiting for my turn on the rig, the team was on the rig testing things out and taking notes, and I was able to grab one of them and ask him a few questions. Now these guys are hardcore RBR fans, and a few of the people on their team actually worked on RBR, and their goal is to create a hardcore rally sim that could also be fun. And it's not just the driving that they want to be simulated, they also want to simulate the damage that occurs to the cars while driving. So for example, if you have full realistic damage on, a head-on collision with a tree can end your rally. If your wheel hits a boulder, it can rip it off. And I did notice at times an animal kind of run across the road, which you can't hit, thank God. And you will see a photographer run up and get as close as they can to the car to get that action shot as you drive by. And I really like those little details and things that added to the immersion of the game. I also did notice that if you don't follow stage starts or in procedures, you can get a time penalty, and the same thing for track cuts. I was told by the guys that there will be track de-evolution, so if you have multiple cars running on a stage, the stage state will change depending on where you start. So if you are starting first, the road might be nice and smooth, but if you start towards the end, it can be full of holes and divots and it can be really degraded. The stages are laser scanned and look amazing, from the look of the track surface to the trees and to the background, and it feels and looks a lot more polished than AC Evo. But that brings me to a bad point. This sim will be using Unreal 5 to give you those beautiful graphics and nice looking weather with the rain and snow, but Unreal needs a lot of power. You will need at least an Intel i7 10700K or a Ryzen 5 3600X, and an NVIDIA 2080 or an AMD 6650 XT, and 16 GB of RAM. There will not be VR support for early access, but that will come down later on the road. The second bad point, which could be a good thing or bad thing for some people, is that stages are going to be laser scanned. Like I said, good thing or a bad thing, but because they're doing that, it might take the team a longer to be able to add more locations to the title. At release, they are hoping to have at least 4 stages. They had 2 stages ready during the expo, so if they are going to add most of the WRC stages, it might take them a long while, which could frustrate drivers if there isn't much content rolled out quickly, making them head back to the other rally titles. But to end it on a good note, the audio was fantastic. It seems like they were using some sort of AI type of voice to read out the pace notes, and not a pre-recorded person. And it felt like his tone would shift a bit and wasn't static as you drove through the stages. So to me, that seemed a bit more natural, and it just didn't feel like it was really just baked into the title. Anyways guys, I gotta get back to editing other videos from the expo. I hope you like what you've seen from EA Rally. I'm excited for it, and I'm going to try to have the rest of my videos released by the end of the week. So until then, guys, have fun driving, and catch you later. Bye.